we're at Evergreen, we like to eat organic, but how big is organic? It's actually 1% of the land cultivated in the country is organic cultivation. And you can see that here, the light green is pasture and the dark green is cropland. And you have a pie graph for each state indicating the sales. And then you have, on top of that, another data layer saying how many operations are organic certified in that state. Of course, there's no comparison necessarily for population, right? So, I mean, California is just going to be huge. So this doesn't necessarily say who's an outlier. It just says where it's happening. Yep.
You maybe control that for acreage devoted to cropland, so like corn for cattle feed. So like, give you a better idea of like the food that you would actually see in your grocery store, as opposed to like grain grown, cropland devoted for pasturage or animal feed.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And that's probably a lot of what that dark green is. So something that's been interesting to me as far as sustainability goes, we have a lot of awareness. We have a lot of data, especially about the climate. It doesn't seem to be changing much, right? Or we have so much awareness about deforestation, a lot of these problems, like the things we started, the retreating glaciers and urbanization. But what about us? I'm really interested in mapping human behavior. And what is that going to look like in the future? Some people have looked at that. So this was a mapping project. You can find it on Upworthy. They mapped the 7 deadly sins, and this is the aggregate map. So the blue areas are the virtuous parts of the country, and the red areas are the sinful parts of the country. I think this is everything from obesity to pornography searches to income inequality. And they looked at each of the 7 deadly sins. And again, this is standard deviation, so it's looking for outliers.
Emphasis on the liars.
Washington, California.
Yeah, look at the Puget Sound.
Southwest, it's the South.
Here's another one. Now this is data from social media. This is hate speech on Twitter.
Wow.
So you think about all the data that we're plugging all day on our phones. It's also location specific. And we are talking about a future where we can understand every single thing about everything. I mean, everything that we do and the implications of our actions.
Do you know what metric they use to measure hate speech? Like, did people actually go through and quantify, like, that is hate speech, or were they just looking for, like,
Words that
I don't know, but that's, that's such a good question. What your data means is so important when you bring up your GIS data set. What were the thresholds? What are we actually looking at?
Generally, they'll put in keywords that they're looking for,
That's what I'm
and then from what
Yeah, it
they
says-
pull with those keywords, they'll go through and exclude ones where I think they're just mentioning where they're not actually directing it or using it in a roundabout way, and survey it from there.
It says in the corner, it's
Yeah, it says dyke, fag, homo, and queer up in the left corner. So maybe it's like looking for certain words.
And I guess this one was for homophobia, but they had racist and disability as well. This is for countries of the world. I wanted to know what are the most racist countries in the world. This is share of people that answered people of another race when they were asked to pick from groups of people they would not want as neighbors. This is another really interesting one for me. This is the percentage of income spent on gasoline per county in the United States. So you can really see where that can become a burden for some people. Here's an interesting one. This is solar radiation data for the U.S. So this is the amount of energy that falls on the land in a given year, given the climate. Now, compared to Germany that has over 50% of the solar panel installations in the world, Alaska has the same solar ratings as Alaska. I'm sorry, Germany has the same solar ratings as Alaska. So you can imagine if you put all those German solar panels in our southwest or southeast, we would get like 2 or 3 times as much electricity. Now this one looks at the savings to investment ratio for investing in solar as a product of both incentives and climate. So it's looking at both the environmental and economic aspects and combining it into one metric to look for the hot spots of where a lot of solar could be installed. Here's a map about sprawl from 1992 to 1997. Sorry, these are a little jumbled. This is another farming one. This is value of direct-to-consumer sales by county. So this is direct, CSAs and other mechanisms for direct from farmer sales. Here's another 3D one. This is New York City's population by day and night.
Wow.
It basically doubles.
Oh my God.
New York, the 5 boroughs have the same population as Washington State, and then they get another Washington State worth of people during the day can use.
Oh my God.
Is that due to employment, recreation, or tourism?
No, this is just where the people go.
Yeah, look, some of those pixels are just totally empty at night. All
Yeah.
office.
So this was the Grub. I made a map for Grub, and I mapped all of their gardens from 2006 to 2014. And then I did the other layer as a median household income for that area of Washington State. We wanted to see if it spread virally. If you got one garden, if the next year the whole neighborhood wanted it, and if it could spread like that. This is the land cover data that you guys looked at over top of a digital elevation model. So you can see the contour, and this was that wetland we were talking about, and that is that flood area. So when you think about all this light blue, these upland wetlands and forests, and this is the pink and red is all developed. So you can kind of think about, you can qualify the ecosystem services based on the scarcity of that land cover or that service to augment your argument either quantitatively or qualitatively.
Where is this at?
This is New Jersey, actually. This is where I grew up. Here's another. This is GDP per county in Washington State, and you can see King County. So a lot of times looking at maps in their traditional way, we don't really have an understanding of how powerful, King County is in Washington State, how much influence it has. The eastern Washington counties are flat. I haven't put data in for those. But you can see Thurston County right here. So this is median family income of King County. Blue is high and red is low. And again, this is spatial statistics, so we're looking at standard deviation outliers. This is in Thurston County, forest losses, and to what use? Forest to agriculture, forest to grassland, forest to urban, forest to wetlands over 10 years. I was researching the German Green Party for a second there. I was very interested to see whether Green Party membership had anything to do with geography. Because, when I think about Washington State and some of the progressive states in the Union, I think it's very much related to geography. And of course, in Germany, you're either in Hamburg or Berlin, or you're in the Black Forest, or in the forest around Munich, in the mountains there, or you're up by the ocean, pretty much. And then you have something in the Ruhrgebiet, which is the old industrial area of Germany. And here's a map I'm making. This is my dream to transport food around the Puget Sound by sailboat and canoe. This is my friend and I have a trailer for my bicycle that tows my canoe, and we got all that food from the food bank and water from the well, and we biked it to the water and then paddled it up to Boston Harbor for some proof of concept. So that's, and that would be the map. So when I was thinking about a local food system in Thurston County, you can look at a lot of things. I mean, you look at your grassland and pasture and cultivated crop covers, but most of the official agriculture in the county is like Christmas trees and hay, But the developed open space is all the areas where you have urban gardens, and then you have, your food co-ops and farms and churches and fire stations, schools, other places where you could either sell food or distribute food, and the places you